This is an excerpt of Through the Moongate and Other Tales of Vampirism, Volume 2, written by Jacqueline Lichtenberg, narrated by Colin Hussey. Now available for sale at Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. The charred lump of flesh in his arms had been his daughter, or the closest thing to a daughter that his kind could know. The vampire, who in San Francisco called himself Mallory Avenel, or sometimes Dorian St. James, gently lay the remains on the soft velvet couch, reading the area with all his senses. There were faint impressions in the lush rose carpet, mortal footprints. A melange of scents lingered in the apartment, as did faint, indefinable, and unnameable traces of psychic presence. As he knelt beside the blackened corpse, the events unrolled in his mind as if he were remembering them, though he had been nowhere near at the time. Rita had been sleeping the day away, as their kind must. 2 large men had broken in. He could almost see them, well-groomed, cologne, hairspray, freshly dry-cleaned wool suits, real leather shoes, guns, garlic, newly sawn ash stakes, perhaps even silver crosses. If he ever encountered them, he'd know them by their body odor. Scrubbing and deodorant couldn't hide it. No 2 humans smelled alike. Most probably these 2 worked for Don Jose Del Rio, the latest success in the drug import business. It was Mallory's habit to take 2 kills a month he needed from among humans who killed other humans for profit. He considered drug dealers in that category since most modern addictions were deadly. Lately he'd been preying on Del Rio's middle management, a singularly superstitious lot. A few weeks ago, Mallory had been surprised while feeding on a particularly satisfying kill and had left the scene before disposing of the exsanguinated corpse. Rita had also been feeding on Del Rio's organization, and it was possible that she, too, had made an error, leading them to her. Or they might have found her through him. The killers had left none of their paraphernalia behind. They hadn't needed to use it. Rita was so very young. Even when dragged from her sanctuary into the bright sun slanting in the window, it must have been about 4 p.m. from the angle, she hadn't been able to rouse herself enough to put up more than a token struggle. Her sleeping robe was torn. There were broken bones in her left foot. And Mallory hadn't been there to help. Shaking with emotions he couldn't name, he knelt, gently placing his hands on the charred skull. It crumbled. "Rita, I swear by the gods of my fathers, the next blood I feast on will be that of your murderer, however long it takes." His chin dropped to his chest, and he choked on the unutterable need to cry. But of course he could not. He yanked himself away from the remains and went to the well-concealed closet which was her sanctuary. He had workmen build it into the back wall of her kitchen, concealed to look like a shallow pantry. Then he had erased their memories. Now the shelf unit stood out from the wall next to the door. Inside the bed was rumpled, a gold satin sheet spilling out onto the floor with a dirty shoe mark on it. The whistling tea kettle had been knocked off the stove and lay on its side in a puddle. He could almost hear her screams. He shuddered, fighting the inward visions. The pain. A long time later, careful to leave no trace of himself, he gathered the sheets, sealed the closet, and snapped the pantry shelves in front of it, breaking the lock so the next tenant could not find it. He cleaned up the tea kettle. Then he rolled the charred remnants in the sheets, carried the bundle to the basement, and disposed of it in the incinerator. It was the new, non-polluting kind. Even as young as she'd been, there'd be no traces left of a body. And now he knew he needed help, mortal help. With the negligence of millennia of practice, he took bat form. By 3 a.m. he was outside a townhouse a few blocks from his own house, high on a cliff overlooking the ocean beach, an area that was usually heavily fogged in. He still had a few hours until the sun would drive him to sanctuary. Resolute, he turned to mist and sifted through the screen into the bedroom of David Silver. The human was snoring. Mallory watched him fondly for a few moments, then whispered, Dave, wake up." The snoring arrested in mid-breath, and with a mumble and a start, David Silver sat up in bed. Then he relaxed. "Oh, it's just you. What time's it?" Mallory told him, and Silver swore. "Why do you do this to me? Don't you know I need to sleep at night?" Rita's been killed." "Oh. Is she okay?" "No. Mortals broke into her sanctuary and exposed her to the sun. She's gone. True death."